Let's watch this interaction between Simon Harris and, I'm not sure the guy on the left is, but as far as I could see, comments and stuff, I think he's a professor in a university, or he's involved in academia in some way, but that's irrelevant anyway. Both people's positions are irrelevant for the point to follow in this conversation anyway, right? Not totally irrelevant, but you get me. So they want to speak about homelessness. So we'll watch a bit, we'll cut it up, and we'll interject with some comments, right?
Let's hear your explanation of why there's homelessness in this country.
I'd love to tell you why there's homelessness in this country. There's homelessness.
Straight away, it's kind of nonsense, right? I would love to tell you why there's homelessness in this country. Right. Okay. So I suppose there's a lot even in that, right? So in how he's choosing to interact or respond to the question being posed to him. So I would love to tell you why there's homelessness in Ireland. There's already a detachment from the reality and the conceptual argument of it in a political domain, right? So the man on the left is probably closer to speaking about the reality of what's going on, whereas Simon Harris is just, his training is kicking in here, and he's seen it as, right, this is this political point, I will now upload or download my political response to that, right? And I will couch it in a, I would love to answer that, I'm so forthcoming with things, right? So already it's, if someone responded to something in the way that Simon Harris does, almost in everything he says, it's off-putting, it's not natural, it's kind of like Mark Zuckerberg-y, if you get me. Like when you see him talking, he just looks, there's something off, right? He's not, I don't feel like these people are really grounded in the reality, the real world implications of the things that they talk about. I think they're so sheltered from it that it makes interactions with regular people who are probably morally superior to these politicians, right? If not totally outright, right? But it makes the interaction seem kind of awkward and staged and totally disconnected.
This country, because it was an emergency situation where we built no homes for over the best part of a decade because the banks.
And you've been in power for 14 years.
You see, you're doing it again. No.
So this is interesting as well. It's not even interesting, like this is just common sense for people, right? If you're used to speaking to people and arguing, right? So we've become overly sanitized, and I would say, like, sanitized is probably the best word for it, right? Where you need to engage in a certain way, otherwise you're wrong, right? That sort of a thing. That's the implication here. So if you interrupt me, then you're not allowing me to speak, and it's not fair, and therefore what's the point in talking to you? And in some ways, in some instances, that's absolutely correct, right? However, if someone is contradictory in the response that they're about to give you, you should stop that right then and there and go, hang on, you need to account for this, because otherwise what you're giving me is spin, right? So the man asks why there's homelessness in Ireland, right? Simon Harris then says, I would tell you, the reason is because there was an emergency situation for 10 years, right? So, right, Simon Harris's party was in power for 14 years. So you have to stop him there and go, okay, well, before you give me the spin on what you're planning to do in the future, you need to account for the fact that your party was in power overseeing this emergency situation. You need to account for that. You can't just hand wave that away as if it's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant, because it establishes the character of Simon Harris and his party, right? Or the legitimacy or the integrity that they have, right? Because what you're essentially saying is, you oversaw this emergency crisis, and now you're trying to tell us that you're the ones to get us out of that, whereas you've got us into it. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
My friend, I'll stand here and talk to you. I'll stand here and talk to you. But if you're going to interrupt me again, if you don't want me to speak,
I want you to speak. I want your explanation.
Well, then please allow me to speak.
Yeah, of course. Give your explanation.
Thank you so much.
And I'll reply to it.
Yeah, you reply when I'm finished my explanation.
You can reply when I'm finished, right? So he's not interested in being logical here, or being coherent, or being non-contradictory. He's just interested in getting off his sales pitch. That's all. Because the man is after challenging him here legitimately. to explain a contradiction in his own thinking. And Simon Harris has no interest in that. He wants to try and paint the man as disruptive and domineering in the conversation, when that's not. Make up your own mind, but I don't believe that to be the case.
Absolutely.
Deal.
Yeah.
Okay, deal.
No,
Thank you so
deal.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there was a banking collapse. There was a construction sector collapse. There were no homes built in this country for a significant.
There was a banking collapse in which Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, they overseen the plundering of the Irish pension fund, putting it up as collateral, essentially, to be able to continue to borrow money from Europe and the IMF to bail out these banks, right? And who pays that? Taxpayers have to pay that back, right? So, which makes life more difficult because taxes are increased, or new taxes, or new ways of pulling money from people is set up, right? Inflation, all that stuff. The more money you print off and the bigger the loans you bring into the country, the more money around, right? The less value money has, right? So prices go up. You can no longer buy the same things. Think about it this way. How valuable is a €50 note compared to a £50 note? It would take you far longer to spend a £50 note than it would for you to spend €50 today. So that, like, the value in both of them, while numerically they say they're the same, they're absolutely not the same. The punt, the Irish pound, was worth far more than the euro is at this stage, right? And Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil have overseen all of this sort of stuff, right? They've been in power nearly endlessly in one form or another, right? So they've overseen all this, but it's legitimate to ask about them things. And Simon Harris doesn't want to. He wants your man to stand there quietly and listen to him reel out his pre-prepared spiel, which is fine, you know, but don't challenge any inconsistencies or don't highlight any sort of responsibility that might be on me or my party for any of these situations. I just want you to stand there and listen to the hope I'm going to sell you and the great things we're going to do in the future, even though you want to address the shocking mess that my party has overseen in the past and the present. Let's just talk about the future here.
Period of time. When I got elected to Dáil Éireann, there were fewer than 7,000 homes built in Ireland. This year, we're likely to see around 40,000 homes built in Ireland. We've had to rebuild our.
Yeah, so I would like to see the numbers on that. Are they including these modular homes that are being built as homes? Because they're dwelling places for people. So is he including those in the numbers?
Banking sector, our financial sector, our construction sector from scratch. Then when housing started to ramp back up again, what happened? The COVID pandemic shut down the construction sector not once, but twice.
And here's a little bit of slipperiness, right? So the COVID pandemic didn't shut down anything. Simon Harris and his party and Fianna Fáil and the rest of the politicians in there, they all backed shutting down things. So the COVID pandemic in and of itself didn't shut down anything. These politicians did. But he wiggles away out of that.
There is nobody in this country who wants to see a child homeless. Absolutely no one. But politics isn't just about defining the problems. It's actually about putting in place plans.
Now, can I reply?
Almost.
Yeah, almost. God.
No, because it's a serious issue.
Yeah.
It doesn't involve shouting at
Absolutely.
people.
I'm not shouting at
I have
all.
Make up your own mind whether you think he's shouting or engaging with a bit of emotion.
You may have children.
Yeah,
You want to see a child.
I have
homeless.
child as well.
Yes.
My child's in Germany
No one
because
wants
of
to
your
see- no one
policies.
wants to see a
But go
child.
on.
I'm not sure how that's
Yeah,
the case.
yeah.
The
But young people are emigrating because they cannot afford the rent. Surely you know that.
303,000 new homes can be built over the next 5 years. In
You
this
keep
country.
you
Like, he's not engaging with anything the guy is saying to him, right? He just continues on. He's pressed play on the cassette and it's going to run through.
all these figures.
Well,
But come on, we know
your
the
figures are facts.
reality is
I
young
know.
people are leaving this country because they cannot afford the rent. We have more people homeless than ever before, and you have been in power, or you and Fianna Fáil have been in power for 14 years, and you cannot say your policies have nothing to do with it.
Our policies are trying to fix the mess.
Your
That's
policies
very
are not
generation.
fixing it. You've been
Okay,
told many
we have
times.
a different view. I thank you for your
no,
time. If you don't wish to take my hand,
No,
it's
of course I
okay.
don't want to shake
No,
your
no,
hand.
you don't.
You're directly responsible for homelessness.
No, you're being quite rude.
No, I'm not.
So as soon as, like, there's issues presented to him that he can't wiggle his way out of, he just walks away, right? On the pretense of being civil with offering a handshake. Why would you want to shake that person's hand if you believe, as this man does, that Simon Harris and his party, and Simon Harris says it there as well, we're trying to fix this mess. What mess? the mess that has occurred while this man and his party have been in power. And now he's trying to sell you on the idea that we'll fix it. But you created it. Did you not see how you created it? And if you were, look, so we'll always offer devil's advocate here, right? So let's pretend that Simon Harris is legitimately concerned with fixing the mess he now finds himself in. He just wasn't aware of it, right? Would you not then look back and reflect on yourself and say, look, I'm clearly incompetent, I'll step down? Because you're part of it. And he's been in significant positions, not just part of a party. He's been in significant ministerial roles as this thing is unfolded, right? So he, more than most, is a part of it. And then he just goes away by calling your man rude.